Thank you, Elder Mary Lou Bourgeois, for your words. Being authentic to who we are is so important. We are gathered here on Treaty 1 territory, homeland of the Anishinaabe, Nehios, Dene peoples. It is the homeland of the Métis Nation, the land of Riel, la terre de Riel. C'est le berceau de la langue de Molière ici sur les plaines. Winnipeg is also home to thousands of Inuit peoples, and of course, it is home to each and every one of us, and we all live here together. I'd like to thank you all for coming here today to spend time to hear policy ideas that have been put forward by the citizens for the mayoral election of Winnipeg in 2022, and your voice matters. When one looks at the people of our city, we can see hundreds of thousands of people who all have the solutions to our most pressing issues. And we need to start listening to those solutions. We all want a better city, and many are willing to put the effort and time into making the city a better place. Mayoral campaigns should always be about people. And when we started this campaign, it was about us as a city. Now, we all know that we face many challenges in this city, from homelessness, mental health, addictions, having green policies, housing, jobs, community centers, infrastructure, roads, potholes, policing, firefighting, paramedic services, and of course, infrastructure and how we use and transport goods and services people around the city. My brothers and sisters, for too long, though, we have been letting others who think that they know better tell us their solutions to the issues facing our city. Unfortunately, the solutions always seem to be the same old from the same old worn out, tired old box. We need to challenge how things are done and to make sure that things actually get done. And that's why we're here today. Last week, we started a conversation about having a child-friendly city policy, where all policies are looked at through the eyes of children. This week, we must use foresight to think about how we move goods, services, and people around our city fast and cost-effectively. We will complete a rail relocation feasibility study, which was canceled by the province in 2016. In 2014, our team proposed the study as an important part of a new vision for Winnipeg, which would see how rail relocation could enhance the city's transportation master plan and help positively redefine our city for the future. The study would explore two components. First, a realistic cost estimate of moving most heavy rail traffic to new, modern yards and multimodal exchanges connected with air freight and trucking. This estimate would include social, economic, and environmental benefits of not having to build major infrastructure projects to work around existing rail. Second, enhancing the transit master plan by moving routes off streets and using existing rail right-of-ways for bus rapid transit lines or for a citywide commuter rail network, which could run on most of the same rails as present. Since we actively started the conversation about rail relocation 8 years ago, some $606 million has been spent on infrastructure dealing with rail lines. As well, the cost of replacing the all but condemned Arlington Bridge, which we stand in front of today, has risen from $100 million to $330 million as a preliminary estimate. For anyone who has wanted better transit in Winnipeg, for commuters who get stuck waiting for freight trains, and for taxpayers who are paying the tab, we have an obligation to see whether we could be doing better. A considerable amount of Winnipeg's multi-billion-dollar infrastructure deficit is tied up in overpasses, underpasses, and replacing bridges around rail lines and rail yards. Do we want to spend those billions of dollars working around the problem or actually solving it? While the cost of moving most heavy rail traffic outside the city is perceived as high, there are good reasons to think it could cost much less than many critics have said, because there also would be major savings in other projects. That's because repurposing existing rights-of-way would reduce the cost of other kinds of transportation infrastructure, including bus rapid transit, BRT lines, the potential for light rail transit, LRT lines, and active transportation. In Calgary, changing rail to commuter line became possible. And in Nashville, it cost $2.2 million per kilometer. Compare that to Phase 2 of the 7-kilometer Southwest Transit Way extension from Jubilee to the University of Manitoba, which included the controversial dogleg through the Parkerlands that cost $420 million or $60 million per kilometer. This final cost rose considerably from an initial estimate in 2005 from $84 million or at $8.75 million per kilometer. Now, with plans to complete the Transit Master Plan at an estimated cost of $1.1 billion that includes 3 BRT lines and uses primarily existing streets, what would the cost savings be if we could use other existing rail rights-of-way? It's these kinds of questions and comparisons in cost savings that the study would look at. We already have a rail network that runs through Transcona, River Heights, St. Boniface, down to St. Norbert and Southdale, and out even into Charleswood. Instead of carrying oil cars and hazardous materials, we could be moving families, students, seniors, and commuters. Turning the rail yards into the Forks was one of the best things the city and the province has ever done. We can see that kind of transformation again. This can be done, and the time is now, not a decade from now. This election offers a chance to transform our city for the better. The cost of a study like this would be around $1 million, but it must be noted that since the rail falls under federal jurisdiction, we would approach the federal government to cover as much of the cost as possible. Now, when someone looks at our city, we also see so many solutions to our most pressing issues. And we've been talking about this for a long time. But because there is actually no cost estimate of actually how much it would cost, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to actually come up with if it would be feasible to do in our city. We face many challenges in our city, from homelessness to mental health, addictions, having green policies, housing, jobs, community centers, infrastructure, potholes, policing, firefighters, paramedic services, and the list goes on. Let's not think in the same worn-out, tired old box. It's time for a generational change in leadership to put in place a much more collaborative leadership vision, a much more forward-thinking leadership vision that uses study and a lot of thought and reflection. And this is important because we need to bring together all levels of government, at the federal, provincial, municipal levels, health authorities, Indigenous governments, community organizations, and most importantly, citizens. We need to challenge how things are done to make sure things get done. Let's make history together. Laissons-nous faire l'histoire ensemble. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Tapoyaki Kitwan.